America. I'm going to tell a little story about Doug, because I don't know if I've told him this story. I first met Doug, actually he was running a networking event in Maidstone 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and something had happened. I can't remember what it was. Something had happened, and I think the second speaker hadn't turned up, or the second speaker was late, and Doug did, it was about a 20-minute stand-up with jokes, which he just picked out of his head somehow. And we're all sitting there like curled up, because they were actually really good jokes. And I remember thinking that if ever that happened to me, at that time I wasn't obviously doing any events, if that happened to me, I wouldn't have a clue what to do. But this man spent 20 minutes telling jokes until the second speaker turned up. And they were actually really good jokes, and he had no idea who was going to do it. Consummate professional, wonderful. Anyway, I'm going to introduce Doug and Mesud. Doug has been in self-development really for over 40 years, and property for over 25 years. He's got a huge wealth of experience, and Mesud as well. So please give a huge welcome to Doug and Mesud. Right.
Thank you so much.
There we are.
Well, good evening, Brighton. How are you this evening? Ready for a great presentation? Good. Well, in the next 40 to 50 minutes, we're going to show you how you could be making between £40,000 and £50,000 on every deal using instalment contracts. And we're going to be showing you how you can do that without taking out a mortgage, without the need of a deposit. This is very small, this screen, isn't it? Without the need of a credit check, and surprisingly enough, without needing to find a tenant. That's a surprise, isn't it? Without the need of maintenance or repairs. And in fact, we can show you how to do that without any experience whatsoever. So before we start, very quickly, introduce myself. I'm Doug Ponsford, and short story, in the late 80s, I set up a IFA mortgage broking practice. I became an IFA, but more importantly, I became a creative financing specialist, a creative mortgage broker. I learned some very creative financing strategies which enabled me to purchase property without using any of my own money, preferring to use the bank's money and other people's money. So the very first buy-to-let property I purchased was valued at £60,000. I agreed to pay £40,000, a below market value purchase. I went to the bank and borrowed £57,000, paid the 40, £17,000 in the bank. Thank you very much. Now I know how to do it. That's what I've done ever since. So over the last 25 years odd, I built up a multi-million-pound property portfolio, which I manage myself today with members of staff. That generates profits of well into 6 figures on an annual basis. If you remember 2007, we had a bit of a banking crisis, and that was the time when it became difficult for me to borrow more money from the banks. So it sort of stopped me in my tracks. Probably for a lot of you here, the same thing. So luckily Mesud came along at that time, and we decided to get involved in a niche market called instalment contracts. That's enabled me to massively grow my portfolio. And in the last 3.5 odd years, we've completed on over 40 deals, and each deal has produced a profit of between £40,000 and £50,000. Mesud.
Good evening, Brighton.
Good evening.
For those of you who haven't heard about me before, I'm Mesud Sali. I've been in the UK since 2005. I arrived as a university student at Richmond American International University from Bulgaria, as you can guess from my accent. I'm Turkish by origin, but I happen to be born in Bulgaria. I don't know how it happened. So I started university. I came into this country with £825 in my wallet. Next day I had to pay my maintenance fees to the university, and I paid £800. I had £25 left. I didn't have any friends, no job, didn't know anyone, and my English wasn't good at all. Still isn't. And I decided that I'm gonna make it in the UK. I had to make success because all my families believe, and all their support has been towards bringing me up and getting good education, so I had to deliver. So I started working part-time when I was studying at university, and the restaurant I was working in during night time had a staff house, and It was a quite big house in Twickenham, near Richmond. So I was living there, occupying one room, and soon I realised that the house was half vacant. It had only 2 people living there, including myself, and the rest of the rooms were empty. I said, well, I approached the boss and said, if I manage the property, if I paid the mortgage, if I paid the bills, would you allow me to sublet the rest of the rooms? He said, go for it, and you will save me from a lot of aggravation. I don't want to deal with this property anymore. I'll give you the responsibility. You go and do it. So I started subletting the rooms. Soon I realised I was making more money than working part-time in the restaurant. I said, property is great. I need to buy more of these. I was living for free, making money and working part-time and making money from subletting the rooms. So I started looking around how to invest in property, how to acquire more property. Unfortunately, it was 2007 when the property crash happened. And being a university student, I didn't have any savings, I was in debt, and couldn't get mortgages. I called Doug and said, Doug, can you get me a mortgage? He said, of course, I'm the most creative mortgage broker in the universe, but the financial crisis just happened, so I can't help you. So Doug, we have to find an alternative way of buying houses. He said, what do you suggest? Well, I have heard about these installment contracts. Let's learn the subject and start buying houses the creative way. So we start calling those leads, and soon we bought a house in Greenwich and we made £80,000 in one go. So tonight I'm going to show you how we make lots of money from each and every deal.
Good, so let's look at the overview. You can stand in front of that all night. The overview of the evening is, we're going to look at what is an instalment contract. I really can't read the screen, so I'll look up here. How are we making massive profits from every deal? We're going to show you some real life examples. We're going to show you how we're buying and controlling property using a single document. And then we're going to bring our offer to you. For those of you that may be interested in learning a little bit more about instalment contracts after we've shown you what we're doing this evening, we're going to bring an offer to you to give you that opportunity. If you're interested, please listen. It only takes about 5 minutes. If you're not interested, we'll give you permission to sit there and sing to yourself. Okay, so let's crack on. I think this is your bit.
What is an installment contract, Doug?
Mesud, are you going to keep on doing that across the screen? An instalment contract is not a lease option.
What is it then?
There's a bit of a well, a lot of people think that it is an option, but it isn't. In fact, an instalment contract is a standard conveyance. We use instalment contracts purely as an exit strategy. We don't use them as a purchasing or controlling strategy. Because we use them as an exit strategy, they provide more opportunities. So what we're looking for on an instalment contract is we're looking for a buyer to move into the property, not a tenant. So let's look at the UK at the moment, and we're looking for people who can't get a mortgage or who haven't got a big enough deposit. Do you think that's the most of the UK population, or do you think that's a small number? In fact, it's the biggest part of the UK population today. People can't get mortgages because they haven't got a big enough deposit or they don't qualify.
Matt from Spare Room just mentioned that, 50%, nearly 50% of the young people even not think about buying a house.
Exactly, because they're unable to. So we offer a massive opportunity for these people who are forced to rent. We offer them the opportunity to own a property via an instalment contract, no need to get a mortgage. So it presents more opportunities because we've got a bigger marketplace. And it is the most profitable strategy by far because it generates profits. It generates profits from day one, and it also generates profits on an ongoing basis.
Why is it the most profitable strategy, though?
I don't know, you tell me, Mesud, come on.
Well, installment contract is a product where the buyer doesn't pay you all the money today, he pays a small deposit. For that reason, you can charge over and above the market value. If the property is worth £100,000, in certain instances you can charge 10, 15, 20% above the market value.
25%.
25. We sold a one-bedroom flat that was worth 100 for 125. But because they're not paying all the money today, they don't negotiate about the price. All they're thinking about is the deposit to move in. £5,000 moves you in. The price doesn't matter. Also, the monthly payments are again 20 to 30% higher than the normal rent. If a property rents for £500, you can charge up to £700, £800 a month. That creates a massive amount of more money. That's why it's the most profitable strategy.
But it also removes all the tenant headaches, because when you move a tenant into a property, particularly in a multi-let property, in a HMO, it comes with expenses. You have to provide the tenants. Quite often we use an agent to find a tenant for us. Sometimes we have to pay for advertising. And when a tenant moves in, the tenants will create voids, they'll create repairs, they'll create maintenance issues. We have to renew and repair. An instalment contract, we don't have any of those expenses. So we take those expenses away from owning a property, you create more profit. So let's show you how we're making massive profits in every deal, and we're going to show you some examples, and we're going to repeat these examples, not the same one over and over again, but I find that the best way to learn is by repetition. Repetition, repetition, repetition. So by the time we showed you the third example, the idea will start to sink in. So this is a property that a guy called Glenn owns. It's a one-bedroom flat in Station Road. Glenn had been trying to sell this one-bedroom property for about 11 months. But he wasn't able to clear his outstanding mortgage. The offers that he was receiving were below the outstanding mortgage value. So he was unable to sell. All he wanted to do was to move out of this one-bedroom flat, move into his girlfriend's parents' house, save some money so that they could buy a property together and have a family together. This was preventing him from doing that. He had to keep on paying the ground rent, the service charge and the mortgage payments, and he didn't want to live there anymore. So we agreed with Glenn that we would babysit his property for him, and we'd also babysit his mortgage payments for him. We're not going to take over the mortgage, we're just simply going to babysit the payments. To enable him to move away, to get on with his life, never make another payment on this property ever again, we'll babysit the property and we'll pay the mortgage off. He agreed with that around a single document, which I'll show you later on. And now we've got control over the property, we decided to put it on the market, which took us about an hour and a half. Can you tell us what that says, Mesud?
£5,000 moves you in, buy my one-bedroom flat, no mortgage required. £5,000 moves you in, 597 per month. Flat is yours. Do you think we got some calls? Well, in fact, we got calls from the Kent Messenger, the newspaper, Kent Radio. We were invited to a radio interview. And because being on Station Road, do you think a lot of people go to the station? Well, we found a buyer within a couple of days.
So we decided to sell that on an instalment contract, and Mesud's going to give us the numbers.
Well, okay, we asked for £5,000 deposit, but then there was a problem. And the problem was
Mesud, how much was outstanding on this property? Roughly?
£82,500 debt. Okay, and I'll be generous, it's probably worth 75, maximum £80,000. So if Glenn wanted to sell this property today on the traditional property market with an estate agent, he had to find £5,000 to £8,000 just to get rid of this property. So there was no way for him to get rid of it. So basically, we were his angels. So, and the angels sold the property for £89,995. Again, I told you, because it's an installment contract, they are not paying all the money today. They don't negotiate about the price. Write this down. Everybody, take your pen out and write this down. If you understand this, you're going to make lots of money in property. We are not selling a property. We are selling an opportunity to get on the property ladder. Okay? We are selling an opportunity to get on the property ladder. So, Tina saw the opportunity to get on the property ladder. She couldn't get a mortgage because she was divorcing her husband, and usually when two couples are splitting, their credit score goes down. They pile up some debts because of a lot of disagreement. You're going to pay it,